Hi everyone and welcome back to SGTV. So today we have a returning guest in Dan Lewin from Lewin Electrical in Leicester, and we have Fabian, who is a T-level learner. And Fabian, you've been working on site with Dan doing your T-level and experiences. So thank you both for coming and talking to our audience and joining us here in the studio. I'll start off with you, Dan, because we've spoken to employers about apprentices before, but I wanted to sort of pick your brains on the
good luck with that.
on the sort of the pressures. But from your perspective, Dan, of having an apprentice, having T-level learners come and join you on site, do you feel an added pressure from yourself, thinking, I've got a responsibility here to not only ensure the learning, but also the attitude, the safety, all those kind of aspects?
Yeah, I feel the same responsibility that my employees had. Yeah, I was a mature student when I did mine, but it's still the same added responsibility. And end of the day, as I keep saying to lads when I go to the college, you're the future of the trade. So you've got, whether you start doing T-levels or whether you start straight from school, you're the future at the end of the day. So,
is there an added stress on making sure you have enough work?
Yes.
And how do you go about that?
Same as every business at the end of the day, but I've got to make sure, especially now, I've got to make sure that I've got work for Cameron and I've got work for Gary, and there's work for me as well. But obviously, end of the day, being the boss, I've got to be out there. I can't be on site all the time. I've got to be out there going looking at jobs. So it's a new experience. It's a whole new frontier for me at the moment.
Yeah.
But I say we've managed it over the last couple of years with the T-levels. So we've made sure that we've got enough work, and we've got enough in the books at the moment for the next few months at least. So the next 6 months at least. So but we're okay for now.
What about you, Fabian? If you're on site, are you involved in an apprenticeship, or at the minute are you just working?
No, I just work at Apprentice purely.
Okay. So do you feel any kind of pressure or responsibility when you're working with Dan's team? Because not only are you there for yourself because you're gaining that experience, but you're also you're aware of Dan, that his company, that he's got to pay his bills, he's got to keep his clients happy. Do you feel any kind of pressure or responsibility when you're there?
Well, the priority is to learn, do the job properly, and make sure that Dan doesn't waste his money and time. So I do treat my work placement, I would say, I'm trying to be fair with Dan. Obviously, he has given me an opportunity. A lot of people don't understand it, but I won't be Dan's priority because, as he said, he has an apprentice, he has himself, and a worker, which Gary obviously, to provide work for. So he hasn't got time to waste, neither he has money, right?
Yeah.
So the pressure, there is pressure, but each day that I'm coming on site with Dan, because the day before that I've learned something. So I keep on learning, and eventually I hope I'll get professional to that point where Dan will be satisfied completely with my work.
Yeah, and that's good to hear, because it's good to see young people have that attitude where I'm not just here to crack, just to do a day and tick a box, that you're here to learn, to impress, to make an impression, aren't you?
No, although I'm not an employer, when I'm even back in college, there's a lot of people that do like to waste not only their own time, but others' time. Like, for example, mine, I'm keen to learn. Dan can confirm that I'm keen to learn. I want to learn. I don't want to waste my time, but there are people that are willing to waste somebody else's time, and I don't want to do that with Dan.
No.
Yeah.
He's to be honest, he's a very good hard worker. For the time he's been with us, which is probably coming up to now 4 months now, and he gets on with it. He don't mess around. There's a laugh and a joke, don't get me wrong, but he buckles down, and you only have to tell him the once as well. And he's got it there and then.
Yeah, and I suppose for you as well, making that impression is great, because maybe at some point in the future, I'm not trying to set you up here, by the way, Dan. Maybe at some point in the future, Dan would be in a position where he could take you on, or he'd know someone who could, because he knows you, he knows your attitude to work. That is one of the most important things I think an apprentice of any age can have, because that's what's going to get you hired. But like you say, you've had people where they're not all that interested. They might seem it, but for whatever reason, they don't seem interested.
No.
You know people who are going out on site who potentially don't seem that interested. And as an employer, who are you going to pick? The one who has got a great reputation from being on site, being in college, doing a brilliant job with a brilliant attitude, or the one kicking dust and not all that interested?
Exactly. That's why from day one, not only I try to make a good impression, is also with good impression comes opportunities. So like today, if I would have not done that 4 months ago, good impression on Dan, probably would have not been here.
Yeah, and if anyone is watching who needs an apprentice, but there's also some great resources out there. You've got Apprentice 1-to-1 with Mark Allison. There's, like you say, Dan might know someone. Dan might be in a position. That's how you get noticed.
I want to gain recognition, but in a good way.
And apprentices, they're not easy because there's a lot of people who want those positions.
Yeah.
It is a competitive market. So being the one that stands out is what is going to get you on a ladder. And if you're 1 year ahead of someone, you're 1 year ahead of someone.
Yeah.
If you're that's what's going to progress you to the next point, and those opportunities can open some incredible doors. Some of the people we've had on the channel from a young age have made a brilliant impression, and they've gone on to many different levels within companies that they work for, their own companies, subcontracting, and it's all from having that attitude from the start, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I do agree with that.
Do you find, Dan, that when you're on site, you're in charge, you're having to, like you say, there's an air of having a laugh and fun, but are you finding that you're trying to be influential in a good way, and that you're people like...
I'm trying to influence Fabian, I'm trying to influence Cameron, I'm trying to influence Gary on not... I say Gary to a point, but them two, the two lads, whether it's Fabian, whether it's his replacement, so to speak, it's the way you've got to be, because if you don't influence them or
you've got to lead by example,
then they're just going to leave. They're just going to leave.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
if they don't think you're serious about the job, they're not going to take it as seriously.
No.
What would you say the advantage or benefits are of taking on a T-level learner?
I don't want to say it's free labour. Okay, it isn't free labour. If you get what I mean, you've still got to be able to make sure that he's got work. You've got everything else, but it is a stepping stone for these to get the work experience they require. But also, I find that we're being able to mould somebody as well. And you can, like Cameron, we've moulded him into what we want him to be. And hopefully, he will carry on and progress. And because we've seen it, we saw an inspiration in him, and we want to carry it on. And we've seen the same. We've seen the same in him, in Fabian, and we just want to work on it. It's just it's how I can see it at the moment.
You've touched on labour, and granted, you're going to have to spend a lot of time working with learners and apprentices, teaching them how to do things. Not only the work, but also the communication with clients, with wholesalers. But you will have an element of labour time from them. Yes. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because you're not taking advantage. It's beneficial to both parties.
Yeah.
They are there to gain experience, to learn from you. You're there to give them that experience and opportunities. But you're also getting something back, because for people like yourself, it might be a relatively small business that's looking to grow. Being able to take on a little bit of extra work is what's going to grow that business. And if taking on a T-level or any kind of apprentice or someone looking for work experience, it does help. It does work for both ways. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
as long as it gives you a foothold in the markets of some kind, I can't see a problem with it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's got with the college, it's not got us any work out of the college, so to speak, but it's got us a presence at the college. So the students do know us, staff do know us, and visitors get to see him in the uniform that we supply, and obviously if we're on site doing a visit of some kind, other visitors get to want to take the number down.
Yeah, as you mentioned as well, these guys and girls, they're the future of the industry, and if you're a big presence in their learning, further down the line they might be working with you, helping you, subcontracting. Who knows? It all pays back, I think. What would be the one main piece of advice you'd give to someone like Fabian, any kind of T-level learner or work experience working with yourself?
As long as you listen, you are competent in what you're doing, and you understand that it's not a game that you're playing. You're representing with a T-level. You've got to remember you're representing the college and you're representing the business that is taking you out there, giving you the work experience. So you've got to understand it's more than that, so to speak.
Yeah. My next question is for you, Fabian. So how far into your learning are you at the moment then?
So I just started my second year.
Okay. So how much longer have you got of learning before you're going to be fully qualified and being out on site?
So I've got this. I definitely want to finish college. I want to finish that course. Then apprenticeship. So that will be another 2 years. And doing all my licenses, that would also include that inspection and testing, probably next 3-4 years.
Is that daunting that you're looking at 3 or 4 years before you're free to go, basically? Is that a daunting prospect?
No, I don't think so, no.
I think some people do look at the time frame and think, oh, it's going to be X amount of years before I'm earning fully, potentially. And some people might think, I'm just going to jack this in and go and do that instead. But playing the long game, I think, is an important aspect of this career.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're working with Dan at Lewin Electrical. What sort of work does that entail? Is it quite hands-on, or?
Yeah, you've been hands-on since day one, really, haven't you?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Not just making tea and...
No, I've never done that.
No, that's Cam's
only once.
And it wasn't that good, so you didn't want to make him another one?
He's experienced the whole range of the job. So his first major job was connecting up holiday park lodges, consumer distribution units.
Yeah.
We were doing replacements on those, and he'd never done it before. He'd sort of watched. I'd gone through what needed to be done, left into it, cracked on, and then he's gone from that to he's done his first consumer unit where Neil came out and Neil McManus came out and witnessed it. Did a few videos and some photo opportunities. So he's done that.
How did you find that, doing your first consumer unit?
I was surprised by how self-explanatory it was. Obviously, I have been assisted during that, but it was very self-explanatory. I would also say because of how the consumer unit is constructed. Obviously, it has been pre-built by Dan before, so I didn't have to play with the circuit breakers, RCBOs, and etc. But no, the installation itself was very self-explanatory, and I was fairly proud of myself as it was, fifth, sixth day?
It wasn't.
It was the beginning. I've been thrown into deep water, and I was satisfied with the quality of my work. And then, little did I know, that was the first day that I actually met Neil as well. that Neil used to be in college that I am currently studying at. I was like, okay, he even seemed to be satisfied with the quality of the work. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, I bet that's quite an uplift, isn't it?
Yeah, he's been since then. He's done ERCR, been involved with ERCRs with his more commercial side of it than domestic side. But no, we're very happy with what he's done.
Yeah. Have you gone into 3-phase, any of that kind of stuff yet?
No.
Not yet.
Just at the end where you were finishing off.
Yeah, he's
with the 3-phase.
Yeah, he's been there, but he's not.
I've not physically
got his hands onto it.
Yeah, but if you're quite a visual learner, like you say, you sat and watch you do the holiday park stuff. It's all going to help, isn't it? Even if you're not hands on with everything yet, you're still absorbing it, still getting an understanding. It's a great way to learn, isn't it?
Yeah.
How does that vary from what you're learning in college? Because a lot of colleges, through no fault of their own, you're in a limited space, you're in a classroom, you're working on boards which are doing your basic circuits. But how does that vary from doing what you're doing in college to going out on site?
I believe when you're in a classroom, you're learning from somebody's interpretation. So how somebody has been taught how to do it, and also is their interpretation. So you've got like few stages. So let's say you're teaching Dan, and then Dan is teaching me. Dan is going to understand your words differently, then pass them on differently. However, if you were to explain this directly to me, I would have a different understanding. So going on site and doing something with your own hands, experiencing it yourself, and then seeing it physically, is completely different. It's much easier.
That's very clinical in college.
I think the knowledge that has been given to me in college will be really useful when you work in the office. As we spoke with Dan, in certain parts of the curriculum, this is a good place to be if you want to be in the office. Whereas if you want to be on site, being on tools and etc., you have to come on site and experience the site and see how you get on with that.
Because it's going to throw obstacles at you, isn't it? It's not going to be as simple as going from A to B. You might find there's a joist, a solid block wall, anything, water hazards, gas hazards, anything could be potentially there.
I brought this conversation up with with colleges, well, with Leicester College, and obviously it's all they do is it's just conduit work. It's all they end up doing. It's conduit work because we've got a wooden wall, and all they've got to do is just screw stuff in. So they're not it's not until they get out on site where they're going to be able to do work on ceiling tiles, working on plasterboard, chasing walls out.
Hazardous material, asbestos, everything. Yeah.
Could be, because it's so limited at the college. I think obviously the work experience side of it is the best thing for them.
Yeah. And I think I would defend colleges on this because it is difficult. It's a classroom.
It's financial reasons as well. I don't understand it, but it's
plus logistics. I think if you are in a classroom with potentially 30 students or whatever, you are limited to space and material and things like that. And it's the purpose of it is to gain a basic understanding of it. It's when you're going out onto site, I think, is when you get the real first-hand experience.
Obviously, Leicester College is one of the biggest construction-based colleges in the country. Within corridor distance, you've got a large carpentry division, a large brickwork division. You've got a plastering division, you've got a plumbing division, and then you've got painting and decorating. I've suggested that for the T levels, for their final assessment, is they get a couple of students from each trade to create a business of some kind, and they learn to work with each other because they're working in a booth on their own with probably another couple of students doing the exact same thing, but they get out on site. Once they get out on site, they've got to experience working with others.
You've got to navigate other trades, and you've got to work together. You do see it. You do hear it where people aren't getting along. But I think for the most part, on sites, everyone's helping each other out. Everyone's there to.
Yeah, in theory, yes. In theory, it depends on on the job site, to be honest, as well.
And everyone likes to wind each other up.
Yeah.
Every plumber's better than a plasterer, or every plasterer's better than a, you know. But yeah. And Sparkies all think they're at the top there, looking down.
Oh, we are.
Yeah. We're supposed to drive around in Lamborghinis and everything else.
You pulled up in a Lamborghini,
Yeah,
so I wanted to talk about terminology as well, because again, if you're in a classroom, you're reading from a textbook or you're hearing from a tutor, you're going to be hearing quite basic to the book terminology.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go out on site, you're going to go into wholesalers, you might even go to different parts of the UK or elsewhere for that matter, where certain terminology is going to be different. So is that something that you've come across yet, Fabian, where you're having to think, hang on, what is that? And then someone says, it's just an FCU.
Of course, yeah. It was Dado.
Yeah, Dado, yeah, doing Dado trunking, weren't you?
And then I was like, what is Dado?
He thought it was
popular in the 90s. It should
80s, 90s, wasn't it? Around the edge of the building, around the edge of the room. But no, he eventually got his head around it in the terminology about it, and yeah, he's got that down to a fine art as well.
Yeah. And that's all part of learning, isn't it? It's not just about your electrics. You've got to know what all these different slang terms, trade terms.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you might walk into a wholesaler and they say something completely different. And I don't know, do you still come across ones, Dan, where you're like, hang on, what are you on about? What is that?
I tend to do it myself. To my cousin manages a electrical wholesaler, and I'll do it to him. I just go in and I can confuse him.
Fabian, once you've finished your learning, what sort of route do you see yourself going into? What sort of opportunities do you think will be available to you?
I think being on the T level, this year they decided to come up with providing the T level students with the 18th edition wiring course for free. So that gives me a head start in comparison to the previous level 2s. I'm hoping for apprenticeship. I really do.
Are you thinking domestic or commercial, anything?
I'm not afraid of anything. If it takes to work on a big commercial site, I will go and do that. If it takes to go and work in a domestic, I'll go and work in a domestic.
That's good to hear. That's a great answer you don't often hear.
No, he definitely knows what he wants.
Yeah. And do you think, let's say, 20 years from now, do you see yourself, do you want your own firm? How do you see that playing out? Or are you sort of gauging it as you go?
Funny enough, you've asked me that.
I asked the same question.
I told Dan right away, I hate doing the same stuff over and over again.
So I'll get him to do the same stuff
I
over
might
again.
I might be in my 40s and I might go to university because I'll decide to, I don't know, be somewhere else or work somewhere else. At the moment, I like to put my head down and work on stuff, work physically. So at the moment, next 100%, next 10 years, I'm going to spend on site.
And that's the good thing about this industry, I think, is it doesn't matter where you're starting out from, especially if it's just domestic, the opportunities are available. The amount of electricians we've had on this show who have said, I've worked in Dubai, Australia, all these places, worked for the BBC, worked for massive companies doing stadiums, and it's all there if you want it. Down to your own attitude and experience and what you're willing to do and where you're willing to go. Even down to wholesalers, there's some great jobs available in places like that. Manufacturers, it's all out there. It's all available. And if at some point in your career you think, I'm a bit bored of this, I'm going to take the skills and experience I've got and I'm going to go on a slightly different path, still within the electrical industry, but it's such a broad industry.
Yeah, true.
It's all available to you. Is one thing, Dan, you're teaching the importance of safe isolation, safety on the workplace? Is that one of the first things you're getting the guys to do?
It's the way you've got to work at the end of the day. You've got to make sure that it's locked off, it's signage is up of some kind. And
what about you, Fabian? Are you happy that you can just ask a question, whether it's on site, whether it's in a classroom, you don't feel like, I should know this? Are you happy and confident enough to know? Because at the end of the day, it is safety. everything in this industry you've got to do to a T in terms of safety.
No, what it is when working with Dan, and not only Dan, when I get to do something new, they assist me throughout all the time, pretty much. Unless it's something that I have already done. But whenever I'm close to a consumer unit, there's somebody always watching me. And no, I'm not afraid to ask. I'd rather ask than hurt myself or somebody else, right? So I always have this thought at the back of my head that there's not only my safety, also it's somebody else's safety, right? So yes, I do.
And could you tell our audience, especially if anyone is looking to go into learning, what does it entail? What qualifications do you need to be able to come out and finish and get to where you want to be?
You say from secondary school?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I'll be able to answer that question to you because I know that they recently raised grade boundaries for the T levels.
Okay, so what does that entail at the moment, or do you not?
For grade 5?
I'm confused. I don't know what the new. I'm old school, so I know as long as it says C and above,
Yeah.
that they are happy. So I don't know what. I can't get my head around the new numbering of the new GCSEs, but as long as it's a C grade and above, that I think you've got more of a chance.
Yeah, I don't understand the new. It's like 1 to 9 or something when it used to be ABC, and you failed anything below that.
What I had to provide was 3 or 4 grade Ds, so equivalent to grade 4 now. I know when I spoke to one of the program leads that they raised the grade boundaries for the new year ones, and I think it's 4 grade Cs now.
And for your T level, what's that involved in terms of courses and levels?
No, I don't think you need to have anything because it's a level 3. I don't think you need to have anything else done before that.
So the way I understand the T level scoring is that once he's passed his 2 years, his T level is equivalent to 4 A levels.
Right. Okay.
3 or 4 A levels, something like that.
And you have to have a portfolio to demonstrate. So what does that entail then?
That's provided through the college.
Yeah, but that's for you to build and keep track of. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how are you doing that? I've heard of some people that have an app where they can just upload the stuff. Some people are having to photograph and print and collate it in a...
You take photographs of everything you've done.
I've not been given a strict way of recording this. I believe it's down to me. Nobody has ever told me how to do it. So no, I just make sure it's clear for myself and for anybody that I want to present it to.
And it is important that you keep hold of that kind of thing, isn't it? That you're making notes and documenting what you're doing.
If he requires any test certificates, whether it's a minor works or whether it's an EIC or whether it's an EICR that he's been involved with, we're happy to provide him the copies anyway. So whether it's a PDF copy or whether it's paper copy, so we're happy to provide him any assistance of any kind. That goes for any of the T-level lads we've had.
Okay. That pretty much brings us to the conclusion of this episode. Dan, again, thank you for coming in. This is your 3rd episode you've done with us here.
Yes, it is.
And Fabian, it's been a privilege to have you on the show, and it's great to see someone young like yourself with such a great attitude to learning and the industry and respect and everything that you're doing on site. It's great to hear. It's refreshing to hear, and onwards and upwards, I'd assume, from here. So thank you for coming in.
It was a pleasure.
No, thank you for your time. Thank you for the invitation.
Anytime. As always with us here at Skolmore, please make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification button below. There's loads of videos. We've got some of Dan. This is the first one we've done with Fabian, but we've got loads on there, so please check them out. And as always, we'll see you next time.